All right, welcome back to the Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to master some pretty complex vocabulary words, but, and here's the best part, we are not doing any dry rote memorization. No way. Instead, we're anchoring these words to a frankly bizarre, visceral history and some amazing classic literature. By seeing these words in their natural habitats, from the absolute agonizing origins of dentistry to the swarming streets of Paris, you are going to lock them into your memory far more effectively.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're kicking things off with the painful history of braces, jumping into a vocabulary workshop, tackling synonyms and antonyms, putting words into action, and wrapping up with vocabulary in classic literature. Let's get to it!
Section 1. The painful history of braces.
So to actually see these words in action, we're going to trace the incredibly long, honestly grueling history of fixing teeth. And wow, this is not just a modern thing. Look at this timeline. It goes all the way back to the 5th century BCE. The Greeks and Romans were writing about moving irregular teeth with pressure. I mean, imagine the sheer timidity of those early patients, right? Then we skip ahead to 1728 with Pierre Fauchard's massive dentistry study, push through the 19th century American innovations like rubber bands and wire cribs, all the way to the 20th century where things finally, thankfully, get a bit more refined.
The vibe back then was, well, absolutely terrifying. Looking at this Parisian dental school illustration, you can practically hear the patients bellowing. It really shows why early dental work was so notoriously awful. In those days, well before the absolute miracle of anesthesia, going to the dentist was basically an exercise in pure terror. You'd avoid it until resistance was completely futile.
To give you an idea of exactly why they were bellowing, check out this detail on Fauchard's methods. He used a device called a pelican, a kind of pliers. Just picture the horror of having someone use pelican pliers to literally force a tooth into a new position in your mouth. Grueling doesn't even begin to cover it. And remember, this was the absolute standard of care. A lot of times, these procedures were completely botched by folks who were basically butchers, yet hundreds still flocked to them. They wanted to look better.
Moving on to Section 2, the vocabulary workshop.
Let's formally unpack some of these heavy-hitting words we just encountered. First up is bellow. As a verb, it literally means to make a sound like a bull, to roar. As a noun, it's that loud, angry roar itself. It is the absolute perfect word for the agonizing sounds coming from those poor souls getting dental surgery without painkillers, yelling and bawling out in sheer agony.
Next is dilapidated, which is all about being run down, falling apart, or ruined. Now, we usually use this for like a crumbling old house, right? But what's fascinating is how our historical texts used it to describe those recognizable yet totally dilapidated metal bands found wrapped around the teeth of ancient Egyptian mummies. Yeah, they used those alongside elastic strings of catgut to actually move teeth.
Then we have botch. To botch something means to completely mangle it, foul it up, or repair it poorly. Or, as a noun, a hopelessly bungled job. And sadly, this was an everyday reality for patients back in the dark ages of dentistry, before there were real scientific foundations. A botched job back then wasn't just a minor annoyance, it was a total disaster. All right, Section 3, synonyms, antonyms, and nuance.
If we really want to cement these words in our minds, we need to look at their exact opposites. Look at the stark contrast here. On one side, we've got surplus, meaning an excess, an amount way beyond what's required. Think back to Pierre Fauchard literally filing down a crooked tooth just to create a surplus of space around it. And the direct opposite of that? A shortage, a lack, a dearth, or a paucity.
Here's another great pairing with an extreme contrast. Lavish. It means excessive, profuse, or overly generous. Remember those ancient Italian archaeological artifacts? They were found in incredibly rich, lavish burial sites. And the total extreme opposite of spending or giving freely like that? Being stingy, meager, or denying resources entirely.
Section 4. Contextualizing words in action.
Okay, time to make this explainer a little interactive. Let's see if we can use these words in context. Read this sentence on the screen. The campaign to eliminate pollution will prove blank unless it has full public support. So which word makes sense for a campaign that's going to fail because it lacks backing? Is it futile or is it grueling? If you guessed futile, spot on. Trying to wipe out pollution without any help is totally useless. It's a failing endeavor. Sure, the campaign might also be a grueling, tiring process, but futile specifically hits that meaning of having zero success. just like fighting a necessary trip to the orthodontist. Ultimately, futile.
Let's do one more quick one. He amazed us by reaching into the pile of blank on his desk. What do you call a deeply disorganized, messy pile sitting on a desk? A clutter or a layer? The answer is, of course, clutter, a pure state of mess and disorder. I mean, sure, some of our desks might actually feel like a wild animal's den, but a lair specifically means a wild animal's hideout, not a scattered stack of bills or a mouthful of crooked teeth.
And our final stop, Section 5, Vocabulary in Classic Literature. Let's see how these super versatile words jump right out of the textbook and into pop culture and classic literature. This visual is just a brilliant dichotomy. On the left, we've got the iconic Lucille Ball, perfectly representing a farce, a completely ridiculous, absurd show filled with broad, slapstick humor. But then, contrast that with actor Charles Laughton as Quasimodo in the 1939 film adaptation of Victor Hugo's novel. He completely captures timidity, that feeling of being incredibly shy or easily frightened, hiding away in the dark, hidden lair of the cathedral. Two wildly different emotional tones, nailed perfectly by our vocabulary.
And speaking of Victor Hugo, look at how he brilliantly uses one of our very first words here to paint this chaotic, heavily sensory picture. He describes the swarming streets of Paris with men howling, bellowing, yelping. He's not just telling you the street was loud. By using bellowing, he forces you to hear the roaring, animalistic intensity of that crowd. It is the exact same visceral word we used for those poor patients in the early dental chairs.
So as we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought. We started by looking at how, for literally thousands of years, humans have sat through grueling procedures, enduring dilapidated tools just to straighten their teeth and improve their looks. Here's the question. Do people just care way too much about their appearance, or is this deep-seated quest for physical improvement actually a really healthy human impulse? Think about that. Try arguing your side using some of the words we tackled today, like futile, grueling, or lavish. Keep learning, keep looking for these words out in the wild, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.